Welcome back, Warrior Family.
Yay!
We are so excited for another episode with all of you today. We are going to be talking about anxiety surrounding learning new things.
Yikes.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And what it was like for us, or how it was different, say, when we were children to then learning new things as a fully formed adult, even though I don't really feel like a fully formed adult all the time. You know, biology says that I am.
Yes.
So I guess that sometimes I should try harder to act like a fully formed adult. I don't know.
They didn't teach us how to do that.
No, they didn't teach us how to do a lot of important things.
Yeah. They
like
didn't
how
teach
to deal.
Us. I was going to say how to deal with agitation while learning, which is a real thing.
Right.
No one taught us that. Yeah. We're going to start our own school.
How to deal with agitation.
Yes.
With Margot and Abby.
How to set boundaries with Margot and Abby.
There you go. Life skills school.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's just dive right in to how anxiety has shown up throughout our lives when it came to learning stuff for the first time.
I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah. So as a kid and now, my first instinct is to get really frustrated with myself when I struggle with something.
Yeah.
It's like I need to, as opposed to I want to learn that thing. Typically, things that I would struggle the hardest with were things that I needed to learn, but I didn't have any desire to learn. And so like if I had like, say, the passion or the desire behind learning something, it typically came a little bit easier. It's like in hindsight, it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Right. You were into that thing and that's why you gave a shit about learning about it. That makes sense. Right. But as a kid and, you know, through my adolescence, my young adulthood, and even into my adulthood, and not until I really started practicing mindfulness, did I ever really not get frustrated when I struggled to learn something.
Yeah.
And what that would feel like was just like intense rage in my mind, just a flurry of like, you suck, you're not good enough. I always had I would feel a lot of heat in my body, just a lot of heat bubbling up. And I would clench my fists really hard, like just dig my nails into my skin.
Yeah.
And my instinct was just to throw in the towel and throw my hands up and say, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I shouldn't have to do this. And then rationalize all the reasons why it's BS that I have to learn it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and when I started practicing mindfulness years and years later, so including right now, I can often feel frustrated. I have all those same feelings that come up, but they don't last anywhere near as long because I'm able to pay attention to the escalation in my mind and my thoughts in noticing the triggers that are around me and then how it's impacting my body physically.
Yeah.
So I'm able to sort of allow myself to pause, to reframe, right? To tell myself it's okay to ask for help and ask questions. Because that was always a big part of it. I always felt a lot of shame around asking for help or just in the knowledge that I needed more time with the material or with whatever it was in order to get better at it. And also to know that I may not ever be good at this thing. I may not ever be able to do this thing. And there's nothing wrong with me because of that.
Right. And, you know, so, okay. I just have to say like 100 things because you've said so many important things. I mean, the first is like, I love that with learning comes rage for you. Like when you were younger. Right. And like, I can 100% relate to that. And then also like, I really love how you said like, as an adult, like you've learned skills, you've learned some self-regulation, you've learned some positive self-talk, you've learned how to like set boundaries around your time with learning, but I feel like you also are practiced in the learning. Cause like when you were talking, I was just thinking about like for kids, we're learning everything, right? Like you're not learning how to tie your shoes along with learning math, along with like learning how to comprehend a book you're reading, right? Like now you're like taking a subject and you're learning it, but you're also a grown up where you have a lot of stuff you've already learned that you're not also learning at the same time.
So I also have choices of what I learn now.
And you have choices now too.
Kids don't have choices.
No. And so it's just like, you know, and then also like when we say like we didn't learn this in school, like we didn't learn the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Exactly. And that, you know, the people around us, the grown-ups, just have more experience. They're not smarter than us. But what I really like when you were talking about how like as an adult your learning has shifted, it just really gave me this like moment of like when we're kids, everything is so new. Like learning everything is so new. It's like overwhelming with the amount of different things that we're learning. And I never really thought about that until now. Like in some sense, as a grown-up, we are practiced at learning.
Right.
Whether it's easy or not is different, but we have more practice
of what learning feels like.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So like the story that I'm going to share is about when I was a kid, I played the piano and everyone, all the kids, my siblings and I all grew up learning the piano, something that my mom and I don't know if it was both my parents, but they wanted us to learn. You know, we had lots of choices about things we wanted to do. And my sister was really, really good at the piano. And I like wanted to do everything she did when I was a kid. I just idolized her. And so I was excited to like learn piano. Except that when I started learning piano, I didn't love the piano. I kind of just loved that my sister loved the piano and that I loved watching her and she sounded so great. And then like I would sit down at the piano and be like, this is just a big wood box with keys and pedals. And nothing really ever drove me to actually want to learn the piano other than loving the sound, being very soothed by it, understanding that it was like not revered, but like that my family loved music and that it'd be a really cool thing to like learn instruments.
Yeah.
And, you know, I did band. I was terrible in school band, just like so bad. And honestly only kept with band because when you got to high school, the high school level, you got to go on really cool trips.
Ooh.
And so like we got to travel the country and we performed in the St. Patrick's Day parade and, you know, we're on TV shows and stuff like that. And like the school band, like, yeah, we were all dorks and weirdos because that's a lot of what band geeks are. Right. But at the same time, there was a lot of the cool kids were in the band too, because the band was a big deal in my high school. Like we had like the second highest funding next to like football and like the entire district. Yeah, it was a big deal. We had a lot of kids in the band. And so music, you know, and my sister and brother were a lot older than me. And so like by the time I was 6, my sister was graduated from high school. And so when I was really little, I had always like watched her performing, right? Whether it was piano or playing her instrument or whatever. My brother had given it up like pretty early on. Anyway, so I want to say I tried as hard as I could to learn the piano.
Yeah.
My biggest issues were learning how to care. Number one.
Yeah.
Learning how to read the music, which I never really became strong at because I didn't care.
Yeah.
So really it came down to caring. But the biggest problem I had was the mobility in my fingers. So I had this physical limitation that was keeping me from feeling secure enough to continue with the piano. But like, I didn't have the words or the voice to say, this hurts my hands. Right. Yeah. It was more about like, well, I don't want to disappoint anybody, or I don't want to quit because then I become the girl that quits, or, you know, I should just push through and figure out how to keep going, even though it's not enjoyable. And what I came to figure out years later was that it wasn't enjoyable because it was painful to a certain extent.
Wow.
And look, I'm not saying that if my fingers worked like Mozart, that I wouldn't have necessarily still wanted to keep playing the piano. Maybe I still would have said this isn't really fun. And some people are really good at things that they don't love to do,
right?
Or that they aren't passionate about. And so like, I'm not trying to say that like I would have been some master pianist if I had just pushed through the pain or something. And I wound up quitting sometime around middle school, mostly because, you know, my parents didn't want to keep paying for lessons when they knew I didn't practice.
Yeah.
When in reality, right, part of the reason why I didn't practice is because it didn't feel good. Didn't feel good to not understand the music. It didn't feel good to not really care that much, except for the fact that I didn't want to be a quitter.
Right.
And this physical limitation, right? I didn't put words to that until like really recently, actually. I was just like, I really think that part of my quitting the piano had to do with like the physical discomfort that I had around playing. And I grew up, loving using my body in so many incredible ways, right? I was a performer, a dancer my whole life. And, obviously as an adult, I started doing yoga, and that's not performance, but it can be a physical practice. And so I've always really loved dropping into my body, and that's always felt really good, and not say easy for me to learn, but I always had the passion, the drive to learn those things too.
Right.
But those were more like gross motor.
Yeah.
And so so basically in the past few years, I've always had the desire, and I've always kind of regretted not continuing the piano, but I realized it had less to do with the piano and more to do with like, I love, listening to talented musicians.
Yes.
I think that talented musicians are like, I like love and hate them at the same time. It's like, how can you be so damn good at this thing that like, I love to listen to so much? And it's very frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, all right, I would love to be able to learn to play an instrument again. Or I shouldn't even say again, like learn to play an instrument, just period. And so not long ago, like, I went to this workshop where someone was using a lot of music in her kids yoga. And I was like, I do so much singing with kids yoga, and writing songs and music and chants and whatnot that I use to help get the kids into different activities or to help them process information and stuff. And so like, I was like, oh, maybe really fun for me to like learn the ukulele. And so I did not purchase a ukulele, but a friend of mine wound up, her husband used to play. And so he wound up having a couple that he was looking to give away. And she knew that I was like, talking about it. So she's like, do you want one? I was like, sure, why not? So like, I basically started trying to play this thing with like YouTube videos, and like, yeah, part of me was like, I probably should have went and gotten an actual instructor, somebody to help me. But then I had a lot of like in my headness going on, because it was like, this is going to be, I feel like I learned pretty quickly. This is going to be like when I was learning piano.
Yes.
And I'm going to wind up getting frustrated. And it has more to do with my physical limitation than it does my lack of desire to learn. Cause like I really wanted to learn, but I got really frustrated, as I do.
Yeah.
I was like, F this, like just like put the thing in the closet. I'm like, I guess that's over. Right. And so I wish I could say when it was that I had this aha moment in the last couple of years, where it was like, this is the ability that my hands have, and this is the ability that my hands don't have. Right. Are there things I can do to strengthen this part of my body that I do feel passionate about? And so after sitting with that for a little while, it's like, all right, I do a lot of writing, which is a struggle for me because my hands get tired really quickly, but I prefer to write with pen and paper than I do to use the computer or an electronic device. Or I like to do lots of voice notes. I'm constantly texting you with like voice messages instead of texting, because texting is also really challenging for me. And so it feels better for me to just speak.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've been doing is trying to find ways to strengthen this part of my physical body that's always been kind of limited. And also sit with the knowledge that it's okay that I don't learn how to play certain like string instruments, or instruments where really literally like moving your fingers at ridiculous speeds is required.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not a failure for not being able to do those particular things.
Yeah.
There are other instruments and ways you can bring, sort of physical movement into your body, or into this part of your body, right? For me, my hands, my fingers, without needing to play an instrument to do it. Right. And so like, I love playing chimes and singing bowls. And I've gotten really into like, just how sound bowls affect me physically and emotionally. And so learning how to play with those has been really powerful for me in my practice these last few years. And also doing mudras. And so for anyone that isn't familiar with, say, yoga or mudras, mudras are like yoga for your hands. It's like certain hand gestures that's often used with breathing practices or in meditation. And there are hundreds of them. that you can learn. And like I use them as a focusing tool. I use them to ground into my body. And so, and I find them to be powerful. So because I find them to be powerful, not just for trying to strengthen my hands, but also as an emotional power, because I'm able to like bring my mantras and my affirmations in with it. I'm able to have it be part of my yoga practice, which I'm passionate about. And so that ties in with like, all right, I can do this thing with my hands and strengthen it and grow it without having to say that I have to be able to strengthen my fingers for this one purpose, like playing instruments.
Right.
Yeah. So like it's been like an interesting, I've kind of, so like, it's not a story of failure, but it's like, I've given up on string and quick fingered instruments. And I'm kind of like, feel good about it now.
It's a story of, I just had one word and I lost it out of my head, but it's a story of intention. It's a story of acceptance, because we're not going to always, it's not like just put your mind to it and you can do anything. No, sometimes we physically are limited in what we can do. And so you've accepted that, but the deeper intention was to connect to sound, to connect to music. And you found ways to do that, even with your fingers, right? And so that's the story I hear, is there was a deeper intention, a deeper longing, and you were able to find the form that worked for you.
Yeah. Right. And with like playing with like, so like a lot of times just for fun, like I do this activity with my students and I talk to them all the time too about how this is a struggle for me and I'm really practicing hard at it. And so like we all hold up our 10 fingers and then we practice isolation, just the pinkies, just the ring fingers. And like we joke around about like how our other fingers sometimes want to wiggle too. And like we make it fun and we try to speed it up. And right. And so like, it's become, like you said, more of an intention and more of like a play. I'm trying to look at it. I've learned to look at it in a more playful way too.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I don't have to look. And I've always felt very connected to my body. And so learning that not every single part of my body is going to be controlled in the same way by me for one reason or another. My fingers are also always so cold. And so I think that's part of the problem too. It's like, not always, but a lot of times. So the first part of me that gets super, super icy. And so like, it's just a thing. And like, gotta be okay with some of our physical limitations sometimes.
Right. I love
While
it.
also knowing that you can slowly, in ways that actually feel supportive and good to you, strengthen those parts of you.
Right. You can strengthen your fine motor skills. Absolutely. Fine motor skills are often overlooked when we're grown-ups, not when we're kids.
When we're grown-ups, right. But like when we grew up, I don't remember anybody ever getting OT.
No.
Like I probably could have used some OT as a kid. And it's like, oh, she can write things. She can, it's like, we also weren't tested in the same way. Kids weren't evaluated in the same way, which I guess has its negatives and positives to it, but we weren't evaluated like that as a kid.
Right.
Or I wasn't.
But I love that you were like, I want to be able to make music, and you found a way that you can still do it. Right. I think that's, instead of like, sometimes when we're learning stuff and we get frustrated and overwhelmed, rather than just saying like, F it, we can be like, well, what is my deeper intention in wanting to learn this thing? And is there a way I can adapt it that it works for me? And that sounds like that's what you did.
Yes, ma'am.
I love this story for so many reasons, because we did not talk ahead of time about what we were going to talk about. And I was going to also start off with my time in band. Playing the trumpet. And I definitely wasn't going to tell this part, but in my later adult years, I actually bought a ukulele.
Do you play? This is something I don't know about you.
No, I don't play. I brought it to Colorado, and Dan plays, because Dan is a musician wizard genius.
Adam's the same.
Yeah, he can pick up anything and play it. So he plays the ukulele for me.
That's nice.
Yeah. One other thing I just want to say with learning is, and I'm going to talk about something I have no idea what I'm talking about in this moment. So I'm going to like give a simplified understanding of what I'm about to say, which is I was listening to a podcast on neuroscience and learning. And apparently it is when you are learning something new, you are supposed to feel agitated. Like that's it. Like your body is like sending like norepinephrine. I might be totally wrong. I could be wrong, but something that causes the feelings of agitation, and you're supposed to be learning in like limited form, because right after the learning, you're supposed to give yourself a break and rest so that your body releases this other hormone that helps your neurons learn the thing you're learning. Right. And so when I learned that, which was very recent, I was like, oh, okay, it's okay that I get like rage and agitation when I'm learning something new and frustrated. Like,
I feel like this came up in our conversation with Lou.
Yeah, it did. And it's like, I just feel like it's not spoken about enough. Like anytime we're learning something new, if we get pissed, it's like, good job. Your body's doing the right thing. Not like,
I love that.
You shouldn't get mad while you're learning, right? Like you should love learning. No, it's hard. Learning's hard.
Learning's hard. Exactly. Yeah. Right. All right.
So I will share a little bit, because like you shared about, so like as a kid, I did not know about growth mindset or fixed mindset. And I had a fixed mindset. My mindset was you're either good at something or you're not. Right. And so I really feel like, I'm sure I've talked about my band teacher before, because he's definitely left a mark in my life. But he definitely taught me I wasn't good at trumpet. And so in 4th grade, I was so excited to learn the trumpet. I was like going to be a famous trumpet player, right? Like, I don't even know what I liked about the trumpet, but I remember when I first got my trumpet, I like took it to our next door neighbors and I gave them some crappy performance, like I'm a 4th grader, I don't know how to play the trumpet, but like, I was so excited, like, wow. And they started learning the trumpet, and it's actually really hard, especially when you're like a tiny little child without like much lung capacity and you need to forcefully like blow through this horn.
Yeah.
But the band teacher was very much in the fixed mindset of kids are either born natural musicians or they're not. And so he basically, every time we had band, the moment someone made a mistake, he would throw something. He would throw those the metal things that held the music.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they're called, but I can picture it.
Yeah. He would throw that across the room. He would break
the stand.
The stand.
Just the stand. Yeah.
Okay. He would break his conductor stick. You would see it. The moment someone made a mistake, his face and his neck would get beat red. And he would throw or break something, and then he would scream at the person who made the mistake. We are 4th grade. We're what, 9, 10 years old?
9.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the thing is if he didn't know who made the mistake, he would have us turn against each other.
Oh my God.
So learning to play music was terrifying. It was really scary. It was really stressful. And I learned that I'm not a good trumpet player, and I'll never be a good trumpet player because my band teacher is so angry with me every time I make a mistake, right? Also doesn't really help for learning when you're always in your fight or flight response, right? Like,
yeah. Can't relax.
Can't learn.
Right. If you're not relaxed.
I probably make more mistakes. So I gave up on that. And that is something that I've actually like always, regretted. I mean, I was 9 years old. I don't know what I was doing at that point. And to be fair, he was a horrible, horrible teacher, right? He was not inspiring the love of music. He was inspiring the fear of making a mistake. And so that I feel like really set the tone for me in most of my life, like how I went about learning. And if it came easy, I did it and I was good at it. And if it came hard, I gave up. Right. And it was just, I'm not good at it. I shouldn't even try. But as an adult, I have kind of like 2 stories about it where I gave up and then I actually followed through. And so, there was like, at this point, it was like 10 years ago, my best friend, Claudia, and maybe it was 10 years ago, maybe it was a little less. It was a little less. And her boyfriend at the time, and then my boyfriend at the time all went snowboarding. And I did not know how to snowboard. I'd only snowboarded once in my life when I was 16. And the whole time I sat on my tush and slid down the mountain. Right. So They're like, no, we'll teach you. We'll teach you. We'll teach you how to snowboard. So I rent all the gear and I don't have the right, like warm enough equipment. So I'm already not happy. Right. No one teaches you how to get off the lift. And so I fall off the lift. My helmet goes flying. I don't even know how to stand up because both my feet are like locked into the thing. Right. So we start off with snowboarding where I'm like, okay, this is horrible. And I hate this. We're also on a hill. And now I have to slide down the hill on something I don't know how to use.
Yikes.
It's terrifying. And so my partner at the time was very nice, but not the best teacher because I kept falling and getting super agitated and angry. And the hardest part was to stand back up. It's really hard to stand up after you fall with a snowboard on. And then you have to get back up. And then you have to, my friend's trying to help. She's doing somewhat okay. Her boyfriend's trying to help. And I was like, by the time I finally got at the bottom of the mountain, I was like, I'm never doing this again. And I haven't. I have not snowboarded since. I do not like it. I am okay with not liking it. End of story there, right? When I met Dan loves skiing. And so about 3 years ago, Dan and a bunch of his friends were going on a ski trip and he invited me. This is a few months into our dating relationship. And I'm like, I don't know how to ski. I had a horrible time with snowboarding. We should probably hire me like a personal trainer for this. Like Dan's like, no, I'll teach you. It's okay. Right.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well. First of all, Dan's a really good teacher. Right. And so for the season, I learned how to ski and I felt uncomfortable. I felt goofy. I felt like I should know my body more. Like, I practice yoga. At the time I was doing kickboxing. I'm very embodied. My body's not working the way it should. It's not, I'm telling it do this, but it's not doing this because it's on skis. I'm falling. I'm looking silly. I'm frustrated, but trying to manage my frustration because I'm learning from this guy that I'm recently dating. But the thing is that like at this point I knew about growth mindset and I knew that it was okay to feel these feelings. It was okay to feel frustrated. It wasn't necessarily going to come easy. And in that season, I think by like my 6th time, I was like skiing blues in Colorado, which is like this, it's like green, blue, then like blue, black, and it's all those, but blue's like the medium, right? It's like so that felt like I could feel really proud about that, even though there was so much discomfort in the learning of the skiing. And there was like fear because like, I don't like going fast. So I like to feel very in control. And so I had to really learn how to do my turns and everything. But it was really just interesting learning something that I thought would have come easier because it was something with the body. And it was not. It was challenging. It was very, very challenging. But because of all my practices, I could really just witness the experience of the learning and be a lot more like accepting of where I was and compassionate with how it was going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, first of all, I had no idea you played the trumpet, like even for that short little blip of time. That's so interesting. And wow. I mean, it's funny because we've all had those teachers at some point where, they just really, they were clearly dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
They had no idea how to handle their own emotions or had been teaching for too many years. Or who knows what the situation is. But to be 9 years old and to be told that you should be afraid of playing this instrument because God forbid you make a mistake, you are going to pay, right? In some way.
Oh my God, it was terrifying.
I mean, and not just like you're going to get yelled at and someone's going to like humiliate you, but like you might have a stand thrown at you or like, half of a wooden conductor stick thrown at you. Like that is, wow. Yeah. Again, more about the time we grew up in than
exactly.
But what I love about, what it sounds like you figured out once you realized like that, okay, I can actually look at my mindsets as like, this was my mindset as a kid because of teachers like that, because I wasn't taught how to, that learning is supposed to be challenging and that it may take a super long time, that people that are very talented at things, for the most part, weren't prodigies, certainly. And took them years, if not decades, to really hone in on a craft in particular. So I just think it's awesome that you were able to understand, even if it was later in life, like I used to have a fixed mindset and now I have a growth mindset. And here, case in point, you tried out that snowboarding way back when. It didn't go well. And in both stories, though, you have a good teacher and a not so good teacher. Even if the intentions were really good from your former partner and your friend and their former partner, they were unable to help you. Right. In really getting anywhere, even just the smallest skill might have been a win for you back then. But with Dan, right. And obviously years later, when your practice is even more honed, right. Again, years of practice it takes people to hone any skill, but that includes being comfortable and companioning yourself. And so you were able to do that for yourself just what 3 years ago, a couple of years back. And say, this is going to take time, but look, I have this, compassionate teacher, a teacher that maybe understands you a little bit differently than those old teachers, quote unquote, your old friends, right? Were able to teach you. And so, how that impacted your ability to look at yourself, I'm sure made a really big difference. So my question is like, what do you think made the difference with Dan teaching you versus those people? You think it was just like more about the age and stage that you were at, or do you think it really had to do with having somebody that understood you differently, or maybe knew enough to tell you it's going to take time and be patient with yourself? Or what was it?
I mean, it was all of them. One of them was I was in a more practiced growth mindset. So that definitely, I knew that skiing was not going to be the easiest thing for me. And there would be multiple hurdles, physical and also fear-based hurdles. Right. And I knew that I had to be patient with myself. So some of it was the practice of being like, okay, it's time for growth mindset time. Right. Like get ready to learn. But also like, I felt really safe. Like I remember like Dan's friends joking like, oh, you sure you want to teach each other? Like, Dan, you sure you want to teach you? You're new at dating. Like, let's not like piss each other off. Right. Like, and I remember people saying that, and I definitely was like, of course I don't want him to judge me. Right. Like, I don't know. How do you judge someone who's learning something for the first time? Right. But still there's the fear of judgment. And he made it extremely safe. And he took it step by step. First, we're like on flat land. He's teaching me basic stuff. Then like he told me what to expect before we went on the lift. And, it was he's a good natural teacher, and he is very good at explaining like little step by step, and he didn't judge me. So I felt safe being able to look goofy in my body. And I felt safe being able to like look a little afraid or concerned. And I felt safe being human in the experience of learning, and all that came up. So part of it was his teaching, and part of it was my practice of being okay with what comes up in a growth mindset.
Right. It sounds like it was a game changer.
Yeah.
And so just like the power of good teaching and going slowly. And like you said before about like giving yourself that permission time to rest in between learning a skill or learning something, and then take the time to digest that one small thing. And how often we feel the pressure to, well, I said I was going to learn that thing, so I better just go ahead and learn it. And if I'm not good at it tomorrow, that means that I either should A, give it up, or B, I suck and I just will never be able to do that thing.
Right.
So I just think that like, it's just a nice reminder that we are not going to be able to pick things up at all if we don't show ourselves compassion, if we don't seek out the type of support that we need as individuals too.
Right.
Right. It's like in both of our stories, this kind of came up. It's like this was the kind of support you needed. You needed very tiny baby steps and expectations laid out for you ahead of time. And so then you were able to better navigate, right? And then in addition, you had your own, growth mindset practice that was able to help you. Like, this is not going to feel comfortable, but that's okay. It's normal for me to be frustrated but I'm telling my leg to do X and it's doing Y.
Yeah. And, the thing is like, and I was curious enough to learn because there's like, Dan's wanted to teach me a little bit with music because he really he can play like any instrument and he can read music and writes and he's very great in that. And he's tried to explain stuff to me before. And my brain's like, nope. Right. And so there's like that acceptance piece is like, I was motivated enough to want to learn skiing. But when he's talking to me about the 4-5-7 home of music, my brain's like, nope, not trying. Don't want to learn that. Too much, overwhelming. So
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's so funny because like, that's how I am about technology. If you and Adam's a very good teacher and he's very patient.
Yeah.
And he really, it's a step-by-step process. He knows that I'm more of a read write learner. So he'll find something for me to read about it or whatever, as opposed to like showing me. And if I say, okay, I need you to show me and you just show me again and again and again and again, he's patient about it.
Yeah.
But I'm also being like, but it's cool that I don't know how to do this without lots of help. And it's cool that I'm not passionate about learning how to deal with Excel spreadsheets or, or whatever it is. Right. It's just like, it's boring. My brain is just like somewhere else. Yeah. When you were telling that story about Dan and the music and your brain just checks out right now, there's like a trending audio on Instagram reels for anyone that's on Instagram, the reels. And the way that most people are using the audio, it's just like, what happens when my husband explains X or what happens when my husband is talking about X.
Yeah.
And so like you see the person who it's typically a woman, right? It's just kind of just like nodding along. And like, there's like a little sound in the background. I don't remember what it is, but then the song comes on. And then whoever's in the reel, it's just like, but my brain is doing this. And they're like dancing. Or my brain is doing this. They're like rocking and rolling or like looking into space. And it just reminded me of that. It's just like when we're hearing something that doesn't speak to our passion, that doesn't excite us, or that we don't have the curiosity, as you beautifully put it, to actually drive you to want to learn and really deal with all that horrible discomfort that it'll take to get good or even just mediocre at something.
Right.
Your brain's going to just check out, and it's okay to accept, hey, you know what? This isn't in my wheelhouse, and that's cool.
That's okay. Not everything has to be in our wheelhouse.
Right.
Yeah.
We should all stick to our strengths sometimes, people.
Yeah.
Less anxiety there. And I love too that you said before, towards the beginning, you were like, usually I would just, when I was really good at something quickly, I would keep going and that felt great. And if I wasn't good at something quickly, I would give up. Right.
Yep.
And so like, that was the fixed mindset, which I had for so many years too, especially as a child, a young adult, into my early adulthood. And it still comes up for me once in a while. Right. Yes. And I want to normalize that. Like you can have some strong ass mindfulness practice going where you're really embodied and, you know how to reframe your thoughts and understand following your thought patterns or whatever. And you could still get stuck in that fixed mindset sometimes.
Yes, totally. It still creeps up. It's there. And then I'm like, okay, do I really want to learn this? And then it's like, okay, then I know what I'm choosing to go through. Maybe it'll come easy, maybe it won't, but I can learn it if I want to.
Right. And for all the warriors listening to that are parents, hopefully this will be interesting for you to hear, right? Us talking about our childhood experiences with not understanding that it's okay to grow, to have a growth mindset or what growth mindset is. So, you may want to learn a little bit more about this. Abby and I have talked about Carol Dweck in the past. This is one of, the things that she highlights in her book. And it might be very valuable for you out there. And even if you're not a parent or a teacher or anything, and you're just curious about growth mindset.
Yeah.
We recommend you check it out. And just know that your kids may not love all the things that you are, I'm sure, very generously inviting them to try. And that's okay too. They don't have to be good at everything or do everything with the same gusto or passion. In the same way,
Right.
I'm sure that you out there listening as a kid, you didn't fall in love with every single thing your parents made you do or try. So, and if you're listening and you're like, oh man, I pushed my kid for a long time to do X and I wish I didn't, like, that's okay. Like it's okay. What are you going to do? You can't turn back time, right? You can start now and do better.
That's it. Because you got a growth mindset too.
Exactly. All right. So some thoughts for this week, warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Consider what it feels like for you or what it felt like for you to learn new things.
Mm-hmm.
What went through your mind or body in, if you're reflecting on it from your youth, or if you're a young person now, what goes through your mind and body when you're learning something new.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an adult and you feel like you're a fully formed adult, as I sometimes still don't feel like I am, but if you are, just reflect on it the same. What are some of the ways that I'm triggered when I'm learning something new? What are some of the things I feel when something new is challenging for us? Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I guess, is there anything that maybe like in childhood that you wish that you had stuck out with, is that something that's still like within you? Like trumpet's no longer in me. I've although I wish I had continued as a kid, I don't feel the passion now, but maybe there's something you're like, I really do wish I stuck with the piano. And now I'm going to try it with a growth mindset, knowing that it's normal to get agitated.
Maybe I know that my fingers are getting stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because like the ukulele actually physically hurt my fingers. Like the piano was just tough for me mobility wise, but I really didn't enjoy touching the strings on that freaking that ukulele is garbage now. It's not for me. And that's cool, right? But as you said, it's I have the growth mindset. And so maybe I will go back to it at some point. Who knows? Start small with like a keyboard.
If it's something, I feel like it's worth investigating. And if it's not, then it's like accepting.
Right.
Like, okay, this is no longer my thing, but it's not because I think I can't do it.
Right.
It's just no longer my thing because I'm a different person now.
Right. So be curious and accepting. Love that.
Love it.
Love that. All right. Well, active practice.
This is super simple active practice.
Let's hear it.
It is simply checking in with the sensations of your body when you're learning. That's it. The active practice, just noticing. And if you notice feeling frustrated, can you replace that narrative of like, what's wrong with me? Or I can't do this with like, oh, wow, my body's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing when I'm learning something new. And make sure that you give yourself a break at some point or a rest so that you can integrate what you've just been learning in your mind and body and being.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
So we hope you will give that a try in your life, warriors, or in something you can teach the young warriors in your life too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have a win of the week? Win of the week.
I do have a win this week.
Okay.
One of my schools who I was only had like an 8-week contract with, because they're a new site that I've been working with this year, wants to make it the year-long contract.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited about that, to have a longer term with this wonderful group of people and educators and little ones that I've really grown to.
That's a huge win.
Appreciate. Yeah. So I'm going to be with them all year and I'm so excited about that. So I was happy to continue that contract. And it's always a win when like people are happy with the work you're doing and they want you to keep doing it.
Yes. And a win because now you get to continue to inspire and give tools to the younger generations. So they don't talk about their early 2020s with such resentment.
Yes, I don't do any throwing of conductor sticks or music stands
or singing bowls. So that's
we're good there.
Yeah.
Or singing bowls. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, it's actually very cute. They love ringing the singing bowl. It's such a big part of our class. But that's awesome. That was my win this week.
That's big. Congratulations.
Yeah, I was happy about that. Thank you. All right, Warrior fam, we love you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode every week. It means the world to us. And we'd love to hear from you. Shout us out on Instagram. We're at Anxiety Warriors Podcast. We have so much fun over there, dropping some tools, some tips and strategies, along with some fun dance reels and, just, memes, all the good stuff.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff on IG. Come join us over there. And if you are interested in being a guest on our podcast, or you have a win of the week you'd like to share with us so we can shout you out on the future pods, if you have any topic ideas that you'd love to hear us chat about, shoot us an email at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com and head on over to Apple Podcasts, smash that 5-star review button. 5-star rating, and leave us a review. Just a few words of love for your fellow warriors, Abby and me.
Yes.
And maybe you're interested in grabbing yourself some cool Anxiety Warriors swag. We've got bags, and journals, and stickers, mugs, and hoodies. We're in full late fall, going to be early winter mode right now. And so perfect time to get yourself a cozy hoodie or a toasty beverage mug with an Anxiety Warriors logo on it.
Let everyone know you are an Anxiety Warrior.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll be dropping that link in our show notes so you can pick yourself or the warriors in your life something fun.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yay. All right, warriors. We love you so much.
Yes. Thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We're so, so grateful y'all are here.
Till next time.